Let me see if we are actually live. Come on. Does anybody else see it playing yet? Because I can't.
I just went live.
Yes. We are live.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. That was a really big lag. All right. I don't know if anybody's here yet, but hello. Welcome to our annual Stitch and Bitch reacts to the Hugo Awards finalists. The 2025 shortlist was announced last weekend, and we have maybe tried somewhat to read some of the things and have an opinion. We are working with a smaller group than we planned today, since Bree and Rhea both are having issues with the immune systems right now. So maybe they will join us in the chat, but hopefully they're like sleeping.
Yeah, taking care of themselves.
Yes. I have been assured that we have plenty to say between the three of us, though. So here we go. Do we want to do introductions, or do we assume everybody knows who we are?
Let's just really quickly just say who we are, and then we can dive in.
Okay. I'm Rachel. This is my channel, Colonati, and I read lots of science fiction and fantasy and other stuff. Kelsey.
I'm Kelsey. My channel is The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I read lots of fantasy and science fiction and not very much other stuff.
And you have a cat who has her own Instagram where there are books too.
Sunshine is my cat. You'll see her at some point.
Di.
My name's Diana. My channel is Bookish Di. I also read a lot of science fiction fantasy, although I also read a decent amount of nonfiction.
Yes. About white-collar crime.
A lot of white-collar crime. I do have some stuff on epidemiology checked out right now as well.
Nice. All right. We are going to start with the non-Hugo categories, the Lodestar and the Astounding Award, and then we're going to start at the top of the ballot and work our way down, and we may have progressively less to say about the stuff down ballot, but that means we'll be hitting the major categories first. So hello, everybody. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Joe. Thank you all for being here. So I'll read the nominees. Do you care about the stats? Do you want me to read out the stats from the list?
If you want.
I don't find it super interesting myself.
For me, I think I'm more interested in stats like once we get the long list, because I think that's where we can kind of see general trends.
Yes, yeah. If anybody is looking for the list, I put the link in the description of the live show. Sorry, I had the wrong description, so if you clicked on the link like 30 minutes ago, it was wrong. It should be corrected now. There's also a link in the description for File 770's helpful list of where to read samples and the free stuff if you want quick links to stuff other people have researched for you. It's a handy list. All right. Lodestar Award. I assume you guys are going to both have stuff to say about this. So
yeah.
Okay. So the Lodestar Award for Best YA Book, the finalists are The Feast Makers by H.A. Clarke, Heavenly Tyrant by Shiran J. Zhao, The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ifueko, Moonstorm by Yoon-Ha Lee, Shaina Lenda by Darcy Little Badger, and So Let Them Burn by Camila Cole.
For once, this is not the category we're angry about.
I know! This is
what? No spicy opinions?
I saw the short list and I'm like, what is this feeling? These are all actually YA books. This is like stuff that I was there was some stuff that I was really hoping that would be on the short list, namely The Maid and the Crocodile. I'm pleasantly surprised to see H.A. Clarke's books, because I I've heard good things about that series, but I haven't heard like Hugo voter populations like really talk about it. So I was again pleasantly surprised to see that. Um, we got some like buzzy stuff, so Let Them Burn. Hugo Darling Yoon Ha Lee is on there, which was not surprised. Like I was hoping that he would be on there because I it was a fun book. I enjoyed Moonstorm. I don't think I'd rank it number one. That's going to be The Maid and the Crocodile, but I'm still like pleasantly surprised it's there. Like yeah, the Lodestar just shortlist was just like I don't know how, like I wasn't expecting it to make me so happy.
Out of all the categories or all the stuff on the shortlist that we usually like, oh, is this going to really be good or not? Like for this one to be so solid is a great surprise. I am extremely pleased that Shaina Lenda is on there. That's I think it's the only one I nominated this year.
I nominated it too, and I liked it enough that I nominated it in Best Novel as well as the Lodestar.
I wish I got to do that because I think I had a slot left.
There are, you know, YA is so interesting to me because so many years I'm reading to try to find stuff to nominate for the Lodestar, and they're like, so many of my absolute favorite books are YA, but it's not always the YA books that get the most buzz. So for something that I thought was just so excellent to be on the Lodestar list makes me happy. I'm not like surprised given that Darcy Little Badger has been on the Lodestar list before, but very pleased.
You know, yeah. I think every single one of Darcy Little Badger's books has made the Lodestar.
They have.
Yeah. For good reason. Shaina Lenda is her absolute best work so far. Like,
yes. I also read and nominated So Let Them Burn. I thought it was fine. It was good YA to me, but not like not something I would consider nominating in Best Novel, right? But yeah, there's so much on this list that I'm excited to read. I'm excited to read Moonstorm. I know I will have to give the previous duology another go to get to The Maid and the Crocodile, but I would really like to be able to get to The Maid and the Crocodile.
I think you can read it by itself. There, like it will spoil Redemptor and like what happens, but I do think Maid and the Crocodile can stand on its own.
Okay.
I think oh, go ahead.
The Feastmakers is the other one I'm interested in that series, but it is, I think, the third book, so we'll see if I can get to it.
Yeah, I think my one fear with the Lodestar is that Heavenly Tyrant will have a lot of name recognition, and voters who don't read the shortlist are going to vote for it because of that. Which I really hope doesn't happen because this is such a good shortlist. Like, I want people to actually read the stuff and vote.
Mm-hmm. I have some high hopes for this one. It really is a good shortlist, and yeah, there's going to be some competition here.
Maid and the Crocodile because it does what I love, which is like looking at what happens in a society after a big disruptive change and how that affects things, but it's also about community and disability and class, and Maid and Crocodile is so good, guys. It's so good.
I tried listening to the audiobook of it. I didn't get along. I wasn't in the mood for an audiobook, so I switched to the ebook. It is available on Hoopla for anybody who...
That might have also been my problem with Raybearer, because the year it was nominated for the Lodestar, it wasn't in the voter packet, so the quickest way I could get my hands on it to try to read it was audiobook, and I wasn't getting along with the narration. And so that's why I DNF'd it, I think. So again, I'm worried about it not being in the voter packet if it's from the same publisher, and I'm going to have to start placing library holds early.
Does your library have Hoopla?
No,
I don't know if you want to read it digitally or not, but
yeah, I don't think NYPL has Hoopla.
No, NYPL has been like rolling out their own digital lending system, and it's not compatible like with black and white Kindle that doesn't, you have to have the app, and I don't read ebooks on anything with an app because like I have my laptop, I have my phone, and I'm not going to read on either of those.
Yeah.
So I mostly do print books from the library.
Yeah. So Ramsey says Alatsue was just okay. I need to read her new one. My thoughts on Shana Lende, which is a prequel basically to Alatsue. It's about her grandmother. Is that it's like Alatsue was fun. I really, really love that book, but you can tell how much the author is like matured in her writing and her storytelling. It's like all the stuff I really liked about Alatsue, but matured and made so much better. And it's historical fiction in the 1970s, which I thought was kind of unusual. I really loved that.
Yeah, I think that it's just a beautifully paced book, a beautifully told book. And it's wonderful. But I've talked about it before on the live streams. We don't need to.
All right. We got our second cat cameo.
I haven't heard much positive feedback on Heavenly Tyrant. I have to say, I haven't heard anything about Heavenly Tyrant since the craziness before it was published. So
you haven't heard how
I am also
it's so
really disconnected from social
transgressive
media
because it has pegging in a YA book.
Oh Jesus!
Anyway, we have a second cat.
Aww.
Hi. Wait, is that our general?
Yes.
Okay.
Here comes the general. She's so fluffy and chunky. All over. Anyway, Lodestar weirdly is the short list that I am the happiest about, and I'm still not sure what to do.
I know you were all like getting ready to have that annual rant, and then nope.
I know. It's so weird.
It is so refreshing to start off the live stream with something other than the annual Lodestar rant. Yeah. We get to take a break from the
I know. So
yeah.
Nice.
Don't worry, as somebody else said in the comments, just wait until we get to best novel.
Yeah.
It's coming up here. Okay, do we have anything else we want to say about Lodestar? Does anybody else in the chat have thoughts on this short list other than it's good?
Look, I see the reels the stuff from TikTok that they cross post to Instagram every now and again, and a lot of it I'm just like, okay then.
Yep. So if you happen to be watching the stream while working somewhere on a Sunday, make sure you're using headphones. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay, moving on. The Astounding Award for Best New Writer. We have Monoquill Black Goose, second year of eligibility. Bethany Jacobs, also second year. Hannah Kaner, is it Kaner?
I think so.
Second year. Angela Liu, second year. Jared Pechacek, and Tia Tashiro, second year of eligibility. I am extremely out of the loop and recognize only 2 names on this list.
These are short fiction writers, I think.
Yeah, Angela Liu and Tia Tashiro are both short fiction writers. Monocle Black Goose was on the list last year for Shape of Dragon's Breath. I don't think Hannah Kaner or Bethany Jacobs were on the list either.
No, Hannah Kaner was on the list last year, right?
Let me double check.
Because I have the first book in that series on my Kindle, and the only way it would have gotten there is if it was in a Hugo voter packet.
I mean, it's definitely possible. Let me. I'm looking at. Oh yeah, she wasn't. She was there last year. So Bethany Jacobs wasn't there last year. Neither was Angela Liu or Tia Toshiro. And then Jared Pichasek, his debut novel was published this year.
That's what I'm currently reading. I was telling Rachel before we went live, this is what I've been trying to finish reading since the shortlist was announced. It's one of the many books that I started during the nomination period and did not finish on time. But this is so far like it's an experiment in extremely bizarre world building. And I am kind of hoping that by the end it will build to something more than just an experiment in extremely bizarre world building. But I am at least like appreciating the craft of what it's doing so far. It's been very slow for me, and I will have more opinions when I finish this.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on The Astounding, which kind of goes back to last year, which is, I think instead of allowing Jiranjae Zhao as a nominee, they should have given them like a separate award or like a separate recognition, because I think part of my issue is we have so many second year folks on this list because of how they handled the Chengdu debacle and Zhao's exclusion from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is not Jiranjae Zhao's fault. This is, I think, squarely on Dell Magazines or whoever oversees them now and how they handled it.
To be fair, I think that no matter what they would have decided to do, some people would be unhappy. If they had decided to not try to honor the previous year or whatever, then people would have been upset too. But yeah, it's having that knock-on effect for subsequent years for people who are just, their second year of eligibility was their last chance. So Ramsey says the book Finches missed. Yes, we missed them too. And their opinions in the dramatic presentations and game will be missed, but they will be watching back. So everybody say hi to Rhea for the recording.
Hi, Rhea.
Hi, Rhea.
So this interesting comment. I have mixed feels about short fiction writers being less read, being alongside novel writers, because I like that I am introduced to new names, but this is a popularity contest in the end. I will definitely say from my experience, the Astounding Award category was so much more interesting to me when I was really deeply reading short fiction in that year. I don't think it's like unfair to have short fiction and long fiction writers in the same category. But I do think it's really more rewarding for people who follow short fiction writers, people at the beginning of their careers, but it's very hard to catch. I think people who have novels come out might have more exposure than somebody who's got even like 5 fantastic short stories published in various small magazines around. So this is why it's a difficult category for me, because I always thought it was most interesting with the short fiction writers, but you have to invest a lot of time in following short fiction to know anything about them. So my 2 cents. And I don't know how much I think it's a popularity contest though for Astounding Award. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm now trying to remember who's actually won the last few years and drawing a total blank.
I don't particularly remember them going forward. So anyway, it is a cool award though, because they get a tiara.
They do.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so Jiranjae Zhao won last year. Travis Baldry won 2023. Shelley Parker Chan in 2022. Emily Tesh in 2021, R.F. Kuang in 2020. Those were the last 5 years. I think
that's a lot of novelists.
Yeah, well, Emily Tash won for a novella.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And
I
then
want to
Rebecca,
point out, because when Rebecca Roanhorse won the Astounding Award based on theoretically just one short story, something I found a little bit frustrating this year was I was under the impression that many people were voting for her on the strength of her novel that had come out in the year that, like, early in the next year.
Yeah.
So, yes, technically that was a short fiction win, but so many Hugo voters had already read her first novel by the time they were voting.
Yeah, and then before her, the last person who won on a short story was Mur Lafferty with 1963, The Argument Against Louis Pasteur.
Did she
That was
did she
before my
win Astounding Award before she published any novels?
I think so.
What year was that?
That was 2013.
I think, yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, okay, so she was one where 2013 Shambling Guide was published as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mur Lafferty was also really well known for her I Should Be Writing podcast at about that time as well.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, I think Astounding this year will be interesting because I don't know if there's anyone I would say is like a clear front runner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Do we want to talk about traveling to Worldcon before we get into the short list?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yes, everybody is talking about this. Just, you know, how can Worldcon even be international when people cannot safely travel to the US this year?
It
Yeah.
sucks.
It really, really sucks. So.
Yeah. And I don't think there should be a Worldcon in the US. I think LA, if they need to heavily invest in more virtual content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. I wish that we had more hope that things would improve, but yeah. I think all of us have been affected by friends changing their plans and stuff this year and reconsidering our own travel plans outside of the country. And yeah. I do think we have a really good chance of having like 3 years in a row of actually like international Worldcons, not in the US, because the bids that come after LA, which I think we will be voting on site selection for
2027.
Is that Montreal?
Montreal. Okay. And then 2028 is Brisbane in terms of bids. And then Dublin announced that they're going for 2029.
Yeah, so that's 3 in a row. And so far, I think they're all running unopposed, which you can pretty much say they're a shoe-in unless there's I mean, in past years they've had like last minute US bids go up against international ones so that there's an option, and I hope that nobody does that.
Yeah, I think
I can't imagine anyone
they
would.
should be shamed.
Well, I don't know if there's going to be the resources or the bandwidth for them to do that at this point, because we know we're already looking at this year and next year's Worldcon saying there's going to be a real effect on a drop in attendance, and just if you can't get people well known in the industry to come because it's not safe, and a lot of fans don't want to come either.
Yeah.
So I feel for everybody who has invested so much of their time and effort in Seattle and LA at this point, because it's yeah. Carrie, yes, as somebody who lives here, I would tell anybody I care about, don't travel here. Not for personal stuff, not for work stuff. So, yep.
And it, like, for me, this year, Seattle is kind of especially a heartbreaking year for this to be happening, because I'm from Seattle originally. It's my hometown. I grew up there. I want to show all my international friends, you know, the city I come from, and to not be able to do that the way I had hoped is really disappointing. I've been looking forward to Seattle Worldcon for a long time.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we do what we can. The three of us still have plans to attend Worldcon this year. We're solidifying our plans. Bree is going as well. So
I will be trying to drag people to a WNBA game.
You've convinced us with Hosier, so
we are experiencing culture where the culture is women's sport.
Yeah. I said yes to sports as long as you're willing to explain what the heck is going on.
I will explain basketball. Fortunately, basketball is like pretty easy. You see the ball, you dribble the ball.
Don't underestimate my ability to be confused by people running around with balls, okay? Yep. All right. Let's get on to something a bit, I'll say, happier. We're about to go to Best Novel. Okay, before we get into Best Novel and start going down the Hugo ballot proper, I just want to say that while some of us may be disappointed about things, the world is difficult already. I think maybe we shouldn't be what do the kids say these days? Yucking other people's yums.
Okay. What I want to say is that I am not, my disappointment with this list has to do with the list as a whole, as opposed to any of the individual things.
Yeah, and that's kind
I
of
do have a complaint about two individual things, but that is its own thing.
So like I am not here to like trample on anyone's happiness at being nominated, or to say that I'm not going to be saying that any of these specific books doesn't belong on the short list. I have overall complaints.
Yeah. This is like the one category I'm very curious about the long list for.
Same.
Just because it's interesting what did end up on the short list. I'm like, was there just so much? Was there just so much churn in this category? So many options, a lot of stuff competing by very narrow margins or whatever. So
I feel like
read the list of books.
Let me read the list.
Yeah.
Okay. So the best novel category, we have Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky, Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky, The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley, Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell, A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, and The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett.
I want to fight the Hugo nominators.
I have thoughts. I actually have thoughts. I've read... God, I think I've only read 2 things on this list, but I want to talk about the Tchaikovsky nominations here, because I have read Alien Clay and I've actually DNF'd Service Model. Not like a hard DNF, I hated it or anything, but it has been, I mean, when was the last time that an author had 2 slots in Best Novel?
I'm going to go check.
I see, here's the thing. I knew that both of these books would be in contention for Best Novel, but it never in a million years occurred to me that he would accept nomination for both.
So I actually thought that service model would be an option here. I thought that there was enough confusion about the qualification, like the eligibility date of publication of Alien Clay, that it might not necessarily make it.
And I haven't read either of them. My experience with Adrian Tchaikovsky is all things that I read for the Hugo Awards. I read Elder Race. That was the first thing I read by him. I read Children of Time, the first book. I didn't get to the rest of the series the year the series was nominated. And then I read Ogres. And like 2 of the 3 of those I thought were very good. Having read 3 books of his, I now kind of feel like I've read enough and I don't need to read a ton more. He's publishing so many. He had 3 novels out last year.
Yeah. So I think that this comment kind of sums up what a lot of people have been saying about this particular one. I think especially because we know of some instances in recent years where people have had multiple nominations and declined all but one, or they have won multiple times in previous years, so they have declined nomination period. I don't know. There is not a rule about it, and I don't know if I would want them to institute a rule.
I think, regardless of how I felt about the author's work, I would look a little sideways at anyone accepting 2 best novel nominations in the same year. Like, even if it was my favorite author of all time, if it was Susanna Clarke and she had miraculously published 2 books in the same year, imagine we would be in such a good timeline. But and she accepted nomination for both of them, I would still be like, do you really need both of those? And it also just seems like the smart thing as well as the gracious thing to turn down one nomination to increase your chances of
so
winning.
Comment here. If they are by different publishers, I get it. They are by different publishers. Alien Clay is Orbit, and service model is Tor.com.
Yeah.
I know that has anything. I don't actually know how much like the publishers have a say in this.
Yeah, the publisher doesn't have a say. It's the author who gets the say on whether to accept the nomination or not. And
oh, go ahead.
I've lost my train of thought now. I had something. I was going somewhere with this, but go on. I'll get back to it.
I was just going to say, just like quickly skimming the Hugo, like the best novel Wikipedia page, nothing was jumping out at me where an author had 2 novels on the best novel shortlist.
I'm actually quite torn about this. I'm a fan of Tchaikovsky's big chunky sci-fi novels. But the options this year have not thrilled me. I liked Alien Clay. I think I was talking about it in our last regular live show and complaining it didn't have enough alien archaeology in it. But I'm pretty sure that I know why Alien Clay was nominated, because the theme is extremely pertinent to current events right now. I mean, like on the nose.
Yeah. The descriptions have never enthused me enough to make me break my I'm not really prioritizing SFF by white dudes guidelines, and him accepting both nominations just like sours me a lot, to the point where like I am planning on reading both, but he is going to have to like blow me out of the water to make me rank them above no award, which is like what I'm
that's
feeling
where I
right
was
now.
going with my train of thought. Is Adrian Tchaikovsky isn't an author that I previously had any sort of particularly negative impression of. But
I see Ava.
The fact of accepting both nominations sort of makes me think less of him.
It is an interesting choice, given
than I previously would have, just because it would be so easy to get like gracious community member points from the community by turning down one.
And I can't help but be sure that like he's aware of that sentiment in the community as well. So, but there's probably a lot going on with this one.
I think the other thing that is going to make really make or break how I view him and moving forward is once the long list comes out, where what just missed the cutoff, because if we're not getting an author of color on the short list because he decided to take up 2 slots, I am going to be even more annoyed and mad at him than I already am, because that's the other thing about the short list is it is incredibly white and it is incredibly male. And
I will say, I obviously, if you get the email saying you're a Hugo nominee and do you accept, you don't know the demographics of the other
white you do not know anything.
I get that.
But if you know you're a white guy, you can do a think about, should I be the person taking up 2 spots here?
Yeah, and I want to, kind of going back to the finalist list, I want to read something that Renee at Lady Business wrote, kind of in her response to the shortlist being all white and almost all dudes. Is it turns out we don't need a bunch of white supremacists to homogenize our finalist list with brute force slates. Leave the likely majority white folks to their own devices over time, let them fall back into their traditional reading habits, and they'll pull back to their comfort zones. You'd think that folks in the global majority haven't written any award-worthy adult SFF last year, which I know is untrue. Hi, Renee. Yeah, and it's just frustrating. And it's just, I don't understand what, I mean, I do understand, but the Hugo nominating body just feels so incurious and so ingrained in their own, for their own darlings, that we just ended up with such a boring shortlist.
I have seen a sentiment, and I'm not quoting anyone in particular, and this is, wildly rephrased on my part, but I think the weirdest sentiment I have seen online about this shortlist, I've seen it a couple places from, I think, different people, is that it is somehow a win to prove to the puppies that white men can still make the ballot even without their rigging the vote. And how is that a win? I don't.
Wow.
Anyways, here's what I'm wondering. How much of what we're seeing in this shortlist, because I think it was very predictable. I think we could see it coming. And I'm not saying this just because I predicted a large number of these finalists in a TikTok video, which I did, but because I think any number of people did predict a large number of these finalists. I saw other people with predictions lists ahead of this that also were pretty accurate. This was a predictable list based on what happened last year. So how much in terms of publishing and which books got which hype in which corners, who read them, who talked about them, etc. So how much is this an indictment of the Hugo nominators, and how much is this an indictment of what happened in the SFF industry over the course of last year? Because I think it was a year where we did see fewer books by diverse authors getting big pushes. It was a year where, Hugo voters skew towards science fiction a little bit over fantasy, and there was just there were very few really high profile science fiction releases last year that I could see making the ballot. It was a weird year for science fiction. And then, you know, you didn't have a number of the authors, you know, you might expect to make the ballot if they published a book, releasing a book last year. So we have a few Hugo darlings. We have the T. Kingfisher. We have the Adrian Tchaikovsky. We have two Adrian Tchaikovsky. We have, I think John Wiswell was predictable, even though this is his first novel, because of how much attention his short fiction had gotten.
And his novel is also a Nebula nominee right now, I believe.
Yes.
So
how much is this a Hugo voters have to work harder thing, and how much is it a no, the publishing industry has to work harder thing?
People read what they have access to and what they know about. So in a certain sense, unless your job is to follow publishing and pick things like really esoteric things from the publishing world to read, you're gonna be only really exposed to the stuff that the publishers are marketing. So
yeah, I will say, Renee just commented, also wondering what y'all think of the idea that maybe after the 2023 debacle made more diverse voters not want to participate this year. I definitely think that's part of it. I think finances are a part of it. Like, it is $50. That is a substantial chunk of change. And I don't know if they're going to do it, but I think there needs to be a conversation about the cost of becoming a voting member, because I think it is cost prohibitive to a lot of folks.
Looking at the specific things that are on this list and what I was expecting to see and what I was surprised by, the only one of these that I didn't predict, and I predicted 6 based on the assumption that it would be one of the 2 Tchaikovskys. So I actually had 7 on my list. But the one that I didn't predict was The Tainted Cup, because I sort of had Robert Jackson Bennett in my mind as the sort of author who will make the series shortlist every, 3rd book in a series that's published, but I wouldn't have expected him to make best novel. And like, I know, because I've seen so much hype and talk about this book, that it had a very broad readership, but that doesn't necessarily translate to Hugo best novel. Like the new Sanderson novel obviously was very, very widely read, but it's in best series, not in best novel, because that's where Hugo nominators nominate him. And that was sort of where I thought Robert Jackson Bennett was. So like, that is the one slight surprise to me, that book made best novel, and I'm wondering if there's something about it that is really stand out in a way that I wasn't accounting for.
I'm not sure. So this is the only novel nominee that I managed to like start this past week after seeing the shortlist, and I actually really like it so far. I'm 30 pages into it, but I mean, it's a fantasy murder mystery, and it's got a really interesting like sort of magic / technology system based on plants. And I think a lot of it is also like medicine and pharmacology based. It reminds me a little, what was that series that Cameron Hurley was writing?
Oh, the Mirrored Empire. I know what.
The Mirrored Empire. I only read the first book, but that was like one of the first fantasy science fiction novels I read that was like really into the plant stuff, because she did bugs before that with the Belldam Apocrypha series. So I started reading this kind of skeptically. I think I've read 2 other books by Bennett, and I thought they were okay. They were entertaining. This one, I actually like. I think I'm gonna really like this. So.
Yeah, that was one that I in one of the bookish discords I'm in, a lot of people were talking up from last year. Like, it was kind of a surprise standout for a number of folks. So I wasn't super shocked to see it on the ballot, especially since it felt like a lot of authors that I would normally expect to see on the short list, like John Scalzi's the big one that comes to mind, didn't publish anything that's in 2024. I will say I was a little surprised not to see Shauna McGuire on either the best novel or the best short or novella
Did
shortlist
she
because
publish one last year?
she did. She published Tidal Creatures, which is part of the Middle Game
Oh,
series.
and that didn't make best series either. I was expecting that in best series.
Has Middle Game have enough word count to be best series yet?
I mean, the first book was chunky, and it's
Oh.
They're
now.
all 3 books are chunky.
Oh, it's up to 3. Okay, I'm missing out on that. Okay.
Yeah, so like, yeah, it's.
But
I haven't read any of the best novels, so I am going to be reading them, but I'm also just. I will be likely to DNF if any of them don't.
I've read Sorceress Comes to Call. I've talked with you guys before about how I liked this. I'm a T. Kingfisher fan. This is not a surprise. I liked this, but it wasn't particularly exciting or interesting enough for me to feel like nominating it for a Hugo this year, so I didn't.
I did nominate it because I enjoyed it. It's the only one of my nominations that made the list.
I haven't read it, but also like even if I had, I wasn't going to nominate just because I felt like enough people were going to nominate it, and I wanted to nominate things that might otherwise not have it, like not make it.
But looking at like back to what I was talking about before is like what happened last year in publishing. Looking at what was published last year that could have conceivably made the Hugo shortlist by like any stretch of the imagination that was by a BIPOC author. There was The City in Glass, which I loved, which I didn't think was going to make it because it was published too late in the year. But also, like, where was the hype for this? Hugo voters do love Niveau's novellas and her short fiction, but her previous novels, I don't think even made the long list. And I've seen so little discussion of this book since it was published. And I don't totally understand why. Like anyways, this has been my favorite book published last year that I've read so far. And then looking at other lists, like I haven't read Those Beyond the Wall, but I've seen hype for that. But it's also a sort of maybe sequel to a book that wasn't a Hugo nominee. So, and then the Dead Cattail Assassins is kind of what I thought had the best chance.
I nominated all 3 of those. I nominated Those Beyond the Wall. I nominated The City in Glass, and I nominated Dead Cattail Assassins. I also think part of the problem with both City in Glass and Dead Cattail Assassins is they're just on the cutoff between novella and novel.
Yeah.
And I think I really wish Tor would include word count.
I mean, it does say on the back standalone novel on The City in Glass. So if you have a print copy, it's staring right at you. But
word count is so helpful, and especially like for anything below best novel, like if it's a novella, give us the word count. So many of the magazine publishers and stuff do that because they know that people want that information.
But the other thing that I nominated, having only read half of it, because I was in the middle of so many books when Hugo nominating closed. I nominated Blackheart Man by Nalo Hopkinson, having only read half of it, which is a book that felt like it dropped into an absolute void at the end of the year. Like, she's an author who is so often discussed as like one of the greats of speculative fiction, especially Black speculative fiction. And she hadn't published a novel in so long, and this book came out and no one was talking about it. And I don't know how that happens. Anyways, so I feel like there were things that were weird and maybe a bit regressive about last year in SFF publishing and what got hype, and that maybe this is more of a symptom of something larger than it is specifically a Hugo Awards thing. Those are my 2
It
cents.
could be. Yeah.
I think it definitely is part of something larger, but I also think that the Hugo nominating body.
I don't think the
have...
Hutchinson novel is a reprint. It was originally supposed to be published maybe somewhere else by someone else, and it didn't.
All right. But as I was saying, I think it is part of what we're publishing, but I also think it is the Hugo nominating body is deeply incurious for various things. And I think this is a symptom of that.
I think the lack of more international fandom involved in Worldcon will contribute greatly to that issue as well. Has anybody read The Ministry of Time?
I haven't. I've heard mixed things. Like, I know some people who really like it. I know some people who did not like it. That's the one I'm most curious about because of from people I know who've read it, the variety of reactions to it.
Interesting. It's the one so I got like a whole stack of books from the library, and it's the only one I got that did not have an SFF label on it. It was categorized in just like regular literature, and I was like, really? I don't remember ever hearing anything about this book, so I'm going to try it, but it was one that made me go, wow, how have I not heard of
If I'm remembering correctly, it's originally the Terror fanfic, or it's like inspired by Terror fanfiction.
Wait, The Terror?
Yeah, the AMC show with the ship.
Based on the Dan Simmons novel?
Yes.
Oh. Huh.
That I could be wrong, but I feel like I remember hearing about that.
Whenever I read the title of this book, I just think The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. And there was some other book with a very similar title not that long ago, like The Ministry of Time Travel or something like that. So Doomed Expedition to the Arctic. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on Best Novel?
No, I do think there's an interesting compare and contrast with Best Novella, though, which has a different set of issues.
Yeah.
One Best Novel.
We're now getting into categories that I've actually read the majority of the nominees, and so I might actually have opinions, not just like wonder what the heck happened with this category. So, okay, Best Novella. We have The Brides of High Hill by Nhi Vo, The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Mohammed, Navigational Entanglements by Aliette de Bodard, The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain by Sophia Samatar, The Tusks of Extinction by Ray Naylor, and What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher.
This is a list that does not have the author diversity problem that Best Novel has. It has
It does have a publisher diversity problem, which is incredibly disappointing because there is so much discourse leading up to the close of nomination about like, here are some amazing non-Tor.com novellas that were published. Here's where you can find a list of them. Here's the ones I recommend. And yet we still end up with all of the Tor ones.
I'm shocked.
Well,
like,
and
two of the
yet,
nominees were Neon Hemlock, and I'm like, come on, just give me one of them.
Or
I'm going to be just for a moment a little less doom and gloom about this. Because while we're talking about like things happening in publishing affecting the shortlist and the best novelist being so white, I think there is something to be said for the fact that Tor.com is still using their power in the novella space to promote these diverse authors. And the reason we are getting a more diverse novella list is because this one publisher is still championing those voices. And I think it says, you know, it says something to me about a little bit optimistic that the Hugo voter base hasn't taken such a hard turn that like we won't nominate diverse work. But it does seem that it has to be promoted, like heavily promoted by someone we trust. And Tor.com as a publisher seems to be someone the Hugo voters trust.
Yes.
I think it's also, again, just kind of laziness and kind of defaulting to the norm, because Tor, like, they were one of the first big publishers to really work in the novella one and like area, and they've just like sucked up a lot of oxygen. So like even when other publishers like Neon Hemlock are Hemlock putting out like fantastic novellas, they don't have the same name recognition, and it's not what it's not the easy thing for them to default to.
You know, it's bookstore placement too. Like you go into a Barnes and Noble and they'll have the new Tor.com novellas. Mm-hmm. Neon Hemlock, if you want their books in print, you have to order them from their website. You know, even novellas from publishers that I think of as relatively major publishers in SFF, like the Solaris novellas, don't get stocked in most, you know, major bookstore brick and mortar locations. And like, I think of them as being a big publisher within SFF. In terms of what else, like I nominate things from small presses like Neon Hemlock. At this point, I don't expect them to show up on the Hugo shortlist. There were, I think, realistically novellas that were published last year that could have made this shortlist from other publishers. Nedia Corafor had one out from, I think, Daw is her publisher.
Yeah. I think that was like a borderline like novella, like I think word count was borderline.
Yeah, it was, because I'm pretty sure I've seen it and it looks fairly small, but maybe that's just how they print it.
Yeah, I think if it was She Who Knows, that one is, I don't know the word count, but just like having read it and like knowing the feel of it, I definitely felt more like a novel than a novella.
Okay. And like The Mountain Crown was the Solaris one I nominated, which I thought maybe had enough, you know, people talking about it and reading it to maybe have that make the short list.
Yeah. People are talking about availability being a big issue here for this, and maybe also for the novel category. I agree. It really is so easy for people with library access to get Tor.com stuff. So
anyway, I'm with Adri. I do like the ballot if I ignore the publisher, but it is very hard to ignore the publisher.
Yeah, I have thoughts here actually. There are a lot of repeat names, people that we know, and we have loved things they've written before. I know multiple people here really enjoyed The Brights of High Hill. We've done our ranking of the Singing Hills cycle novellas before. The Butcher of the Forest is one that's actually interesting to me. So I have read all but 2 of these, and this is one of those 2 that I DNF'd. I just couldn't get into it, which really surprised me. I have enjoyed a lot of stuff I've read by Premi Muhammad, mainly because of shortlist reading before. So I heard a lot of buzz about The Butcher of the Forest and was surprised that I didn't get into it. But I think it was a type of fantasy that it probably isn't my thing.
It's a type of fantasy I read a lot of, so I get along with it. But
I know you were interested in it, yeah. Navigational Entanglements and The Tusks of Extinction were both on my nomination list. I'm actually really happy that Tusks of Extinction made it onto the list. Like it's one that like in my memory just keeps improving. Like that was some really good solid science fiction, with topics that I really enjoyed. So I'm happy to see that on the list. And happy that navigational entanglements made it in some category, because I think it was another one that was like on a weird cutoff. People weren't sure what length it actually fit in. And I also enjoyed it. I haven't read What Feasts at Night, but I'm pretty sure I will like it. I mean, it's Ursula Vernon. The only one in this list that like I knew it was going to be on this list, but I personally did not enjoy it, was The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain, which is just that's my issue with it. I love Sophia Samatar. I just didn't like this particular one. So
I liked The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain, and I nominated it. But,
I had plenty of nominations. I had to choose. I had to leave some things off of my nominations. And I was like, do I want to nominate Sophia Samatar, or do I want to put Transitive Properties of Cheese? And they're like, come on.
I was really trying to nominate non-tour.com things, and I had 4 of them. And then I gave my one tour.com slot to The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain, even though I also did really like Butcher of the Forest and Brides of High Hill.
Yeah, the only ones I haven't read are Tusks of Extinction and The Tea Kingfisher. I think right now my top one would be The Brides of High Hill. And then I don't know what my 2 would be. It would either be the Sophia Samatar or the Premi Muhammad.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, though, in terms of like high profile publishers, Premi Muhammad is an author who had, I think, 3 novellas and a novel out last year. And the only one I read was the Tour.com novella.
The
only one that made the shortlist was the Tour.com book.
I started reading her novel, but I wasn't in the right headspace to read it. So it was one of those like soft DNFs where it's like, I'm putting it down for now, but I do plan on picking it up.
I think the one thing that makes me happy about this category, though, is despite some of my mixed feelings about individual nominees, I feel like any one of these could win, and I would be happy. I wouldn't be like super disappointed that something else lost. So yeah, I think that means that like it's good.
Yeah, I think. I mean, granted, I still haven't read 2 of the nominees, but like I think this is a good, publisher aside, I think this is a good shortlist.
Yeah. Okay. Novelette. I do have opinions on this one. Okay.
I haven't read any of these.
I have not either.
I think, yeah, so best novelette is like probably the most interesting, like the best of like the short fiction categories for me. And all of these that I'm about to read are available online to read for free, including the one that was published in Asimov. So if you want to read them, go find the File 770 link in the description. That will get you to where you want to go. So the nominees for Best Novelette are The Brotherhood of Montague St. Video by Thomas Ha, By Salt by Sea by Light of Stars by Premi Muhammad, The Forest Sisters Overlooking the Sea by Naomi Kritzer, Lake of Souls by Anne Leckie, Loneliness Universe by Eugenia Triantafalu. Sorry if I butchered that. And Signs of Life by Sarah Pinsker. I apologize. The Anne Leckie one is not available for online for free. It's in her collection. So I have read all of these now. It's an interesting list. A lot of names that I still recognize, even though I haven't been reading a lot of short fiction over the past couple of years, though. So the Brotherhood of Montague St. Video, or is it Video? I will keep when I say Video, is... I'm not sure I'm going to remember this one for very long, but it has an interesting premise of basically a future where like all media can be rewritten and revised and rewritten So it's really hard to hold on to an original thing. And things that are original and like hard copies that can't be edited, like even books, like physical books in this future, are really digital and they can be revised. So this person in the story finds a dead book, a print one that can't be updated, and somebody wants it basically. And I thought that that idea of things being constantly changed on you, of history being rewritten, of your own memories of things being rewritten in some ways, was quite interesting. I'm not sure if I liked kind of the vagueness of the action in the story at the end, but I do think that the premise of it was timely in an age of like digital impermanence and everything. By Salt, by Sea, by Light of Stars. I can't remember what this one was about. Oops. Yeah, I don't think it made an impression on me. Nobody's surprised. I really love Naomi Kritzer, and The Four Sisters Overlooking the Sea is, instead of being like a contemporary sci-fi or like near future sci-fi from her, is like contemporary fantasy. And I know some people here will be excited to know that it's basically a Selkie story. Like, come on. I super enjoyed this one. I really, really liked it. And not least because it has a real subtle asshole of a husband in it who gets his comeuppance.
Oh, good. Always love those.
And the wife gets her byline on that academic paper. Like, so, Lake of Souls by Anne Leckie. I don't know if this story is part of any universe that she's written novels in. I think maybe not, based on the way that the short story collection is categorized. But it's like dual POV. It's from the perspective of like an alien life form, like going on kind of a coming of age journey, and then a human explorer who wakes up from cryosleep, everybody's gone or dead, and they land on the planet, and these two cross paths. I think the premise of this one, like what it's essentially saying about like, oh, we want to try to prevent humans from colonizing a planet that already has life forms. We need to protect the aliens, has been done before. I did really enjoy Leckie writing from the perspective of a very alien species, like the three eye stalks. Come on. Do they have souls or do they have another life form inside of them? That sort of thing. So, and I don't want to spoil the story, but the way that it ends actually kind of surprised me. It's, yeah, I won't go there, but, I liked it. It made me kind of sad, but also like, yeah, that was realistic. It is very dangerous to go walking around a planet of alien life and like not get an infection. So, Loneliness Universe is one that I'm pretty sure I have had multiple friends tell me about when they read it back when it was first published. I was kind of looking forward to this one. And it's another one that I think kind of hits home for today's generations of people who, I mean, kind of like us, you know, long distance friendships, trying to keep connected to people that we can't physically see, and just feeling lonely and isolated, and kind of like you're living in your own universe where it's really hard for other people to perceive you. You're always feeling like you're passing ships in the night. So it is literally about a woman who, when trying to reconnect with a childhood friend after like 20 years or whatever, they agree to meet up. But when they get to the same spot, they cannot see each other. And the woman in the heart of the story realizes that she's kind of like slipping into a universe of her own. She cannot directly interact with anyone, even her brother, who she's sharing a house with. This one made me feel things. Like I think a lot of people will read this and recognize their own lives in the story, and it's a little bit painful, unfortunately. So yeah, I like this one. I wouldn't say that's like top of my like voting list here in this category, but I can also see why it was a standout for other people this year. And then there's Signs of Life by Sarah Pinsker, the last one in the category, which I also really enjoyed. Not surprising because I like a lot of Sarah Pinsker stuff too. Yes. Like too much. Yeah. The good news, if you read this story though, is if you like to email people or send them physical letters, you can still do that. So Signs of Life is, I feel like tone-wise, this like really fits in with like Loneliness Universe and the Kritzer story. I'm sort of realizing that now. It's another contemporary, very kind of like quiet, understated fantasy story about a woman going to see and speak to her sister for the first time in like 40 years. And what do I want to say about this? Somebody's eating rocks. I'll just throw that out there.
Okay.
There's another like little twist in the story. There's a thing that you slowly start to realize. And I thought it was great, like how it was revealed that you kind of end up, you know, everything, like probably halfway through the story. And then it's like, oh, it was real. It was real. So, yeah. So this one, like Signs of Life and The Four Sisters Overlooking the Sea are going to be the two that like fight for top spot for me in this category, I think. So I think they're all worth reading, except for the Premi Muhammad one, which I can't remember for some reason. As somebody read this and can give a synopsis. I literally read it yesterday. I'm going to try to jog my memory. Oh, it's the wizard story. Okay, not gonna lie, I thought that story was a bit of a cop-out. I don't think anybody else has opinions on this category.
No, I haven't read any of them.
Okay.
I've read 2 of the short stories though.
Okay.
Let's
move on to that then.
I haven't read anything in short stories.
Best short story category. We have 5 Views of the Planet Tartarus by Rachel K. Jones, Marginalia by Mary Robinette Kowal, Stitched to Skin Like Family Is by Ni Vo, 3 Faces of a Beheading by Arkady Martin, We'll Teach You How to Read, We Will Teach You How to Read by Carolyn M. Joachim, and Why Don't We Just Kill the Kid in the Omelas Hole by Isabel J. Kim. This is the category that kind of got into the violence.
The 2 I've read were 5 Views of the Planet Tartarus because it is so short, but also it's just like, here's a terrible situation. Isn't this terrible? And you're like, yeah, that's terrible. The end.
I feel like the Omelas story is the same thing, just like 10 times as long.
And then the other one I read that I really, really actually liked was We Will Teach You How to Read, We Will Teach You How to Read. It is a weirdly formatted story, and it's gosh, It made me almost cry at the end, but that might just be because I'm in a weird emotional place.
It was doing something to me too, and I didn't even really care for it. So it was interesting, mainly because of how it's formatted. But what my only real annoyance with it is it doesn't really have a plot. It's
right. You
we are telling
you
a
have
story.
to sort of make up the story, the actual narrative, in your own mind,
and it's very repetitive
around the thing that you're given to read.
Mhm.
I found that kind of evocative and
Yes.
about it. You have to sort of imagine the circumstances that led to this text existing. It is some sort of communication from some non-human species, presumably to humans, in an attempt to communicate their species history to us. But our ability to understand it is limited. And you have to, it's got like multiple columns of text at the same time.
Mhm. And so people are all saying like there's a podcast version of this. I was like, how did they do that? They must have found a way to do it, because so much of it is side by side.
There was it was also nominated for the Nebula, and you know how the Nebulas do like audio narration of snippets of each of the nominees. I don't know if it was the same narration as the podcast version. I'll have to maybe listen to that and compare. But what they did is they just like recorded both lines of text, and it was playing simultaneously. So you had to listen to both. But yeah, remarkably little actual narrative there, but it made me feel something by the end.
I think so in many ways this comes across more as poetry to me than a short story format, which is interesting considering there's
actually a
poetry category this year. Yeah. and in that case, I think like trying to approach it more like poetry rather than I need a narrative here is probably a better choice for me. So I might have to reread that one or like listen to the podcast version. I do like it when we get short stories that play with form. I think one year we had was it a Sarah Gailey story that was like in footnotes. Sarah Pinsker had one that was kind of like almost like a research blog article based one before. So sometimes they can be a gimmick and sometimes they can make the story really interesting. So yeah, Curiosity Caught. See, I think it's successful in that. I was really hoping to enjoy Marginalia. I'm usually a fan of Mary Robinette Kowal. This story, like all I knew about it going in was like the fighting the snails. Like that's why it's called Marginalia. Medieval manuscripts also often have these gigantic snails that like knights are jousting with. People are always like, what was it about monster snails in this time period? Like it's not just one medieval manuscript with this, it's a lot of them. So she kind of took that idea. There is a giant poisonous, really dangerous snail in the story, and a knight tries to go after it, and that doesn't go so well for him. I think the story is also dealing with a very personal issue for Kowal. Well, two. One is the talking cat. The cat doesn't actually talk, but if you follow Kowal on like Instagram and you know about Elsie using the buttons, whenever a cat shows up in Kowal's stories now, I'm like, is that based on Elsie? But Kowal's mother passed away not that long ago. She suffered from Parkinson's for a number of years. And there is a mother in the story who is presented as being in a very similar state as well. So I found some parts of this interesting to read because of I thought I knew what the inspirations were, but the story as a whole was kind of meh to me. I didn't love the language of this one. I felt like it was almost trying too hard to come across as this is how you tell a medieval story. This is how people talked at the time. And I was like, no. You were going for atmosphere, but I think it went a little bit too far into that. So yeah, sorry. Call back to what we were talking before. Stet and Where Oaken Hearts Do Gather. Those were the other ones with playing with form. So I'd be very curious to know what people think of Marginalia if they come into it cold and they don't know anything about the like possible inspirations for parts of the story. Like, what is your impression of this? I think I spent more time thinking about like how was this put together than about the story itself. So. I'm surprised people aren't going off about the Omelas story more, though, in the comments. Do people not want to go there?
I haven't read any of them, so I have like no real comment.
I haven't read it.
I will say I do agree with Adri that there is too much uncanny across novelette and short story.
Not surprising, but yeah. I do think there were more like Lightspeed nominations this year than have been in previous years, which I like seeing. I feel like their publications often kind of get snowed under like Clark's World and Uncanny. So, my thoughts on the Omelas story. I have only read Those Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin once, and I'm not the kind of person to get into that philosophical, ethical, moral quicksand. So the issue with that and what a lot of the like response stories to Omelas are trying to do has never interested me that much. This particular response, I thought it was kind of funny, but it was funny about a really awful thing. So I feel like why was this nominated? Because it expresses some anger and a lot of frustration, I think, of real world things. But I don't think it was, for me, it wasn't like a really important like installment in this discussion that people have been having for decades about the original story. I'm not entirely sure what the definition of nihilism is, but maybe. My summary of the Omelas story is that why don't they just kill the kid in the Omelas hole? Because it doesn't make a difference. They keep killing the kid, and it doesn't matter, and nothing gets better. And that's depressing as hell right now. My favorite story in this category was the Niveau one, which is also pretty short. It's stitched to skin like Family is. I also really liked, I liked the little bit of the fantastical element in it, which is that the person whose story is about, when she touches like fabric and textiles, she can like hear conversations or get a sense of the person who wore the clothing or touched it or something. It's also sad and kind of violent. Are we ready to move on then to best?
Yeah.
Best series.
Yay.
You guys are gonna have to talk about this one because I don't have any thoughts.
I only have a couple of thoughts, but that is because I am behind on the series, but I'm excited about some of them.
Okay. So the best series finalists are Between Earth and Sky by Rebecca Roanhorse, The Burning Kingdoms by Tasha Suri, Encrypted by Shauna McGuire, Southern Reach by Jeff Vandermeer, The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, and The Tyrant Philosophers by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
This is usually one of my favorite categories to get excited about, but I'm going to need some convincing to get excited about some of these.
Yeah.
I like the only book I've read on this whole list is I read the first book in the Rebecca Roanhorse series. I don't know if I'll continue. I'm excited for the this sort of push for me to read the Tasha Suri series. I'm curious about those. And then beyond that, like, I'm going to need someone to hype me up to read any of these.
Yeah, so I, for a while, was reading the Encrypted series annually, and then I fell off in grad school and I haven't caught up, but I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm gonna, read 12, 13 books in time for the Hugos because it is one of those like very long ongoing series. I need to finish Between Earth and Sky. Like Kelsey, I just read the first book and then I was waiting to read book 2 until book 3 came out. I do want to read The Burning Kingdoms. I've heard good things about it. I have not read the Southern Reach trilogy. I will not be reading Sanderson because I don't read Sanderson. Yeah, Adri, I'd rather die than read more Star Wars.
I want to say I had managed to like erase an entire Stormlight Archive book from my memory, and I didn't think the series was eligible again because I thought that it had only been one book since it was last nominated. No, there were 2 books.
They're also massive. So you're talking about like qualifying again for like word count. Like he just needs like half a novel.
Here's the thing. I don't plan on reading them, but no one will ever be able to convince me that those books need to be that long. And then I don't feel like reading Adrian Tchaikovsky.
I might give this one a try just because I've never read his fantasy. And I want to know what
this must be his more recent fantasy series. Like I think 2 books are out. That
it has to be 3 books
or 3 books
to be.
He's very prolific, and my sense of time is very warped.
Eligible. However, I think the 3rd book that made this series eligible was published in the UK last year, making it eligible for best series, but it didn't come out until early this year in the US.
Okay, so Ramsey, this is from someone who has only read one Sanderson book and found it so completely mid that the only thing, like, I don't remember anything about this book. Like, because with bad books, I can remember, like, specific things that I thought were awful or terrible about it. I don't remember anything about this book. I know I read it because my Goodreads tells me I read it. I think for him, it's because he's one of the first, like, adult fantasy books or authors that people read, like, when they're getting into fantasy. And I also think people get really hung up on the whole idea of the Cosmere. It's like the book version of the MCU where everything is connected and oh my god, did you realize that X character from X series shows up for like 2 pages in this
That's a good
series?
analogy.
Yeah. Like I honestly think it's that. Like I was just watching a video from Elliot Brooks. She was kind of talking about people's complaints with like fandom, like book fandoms, and one of the things that got brought up was with Sanderson. It's like the more you read, the more it's like you can't just like start with a series. It's like, oh no, you have to read X series to like really understand it. And I'm like, one, like I don't want to have to do that to myself. And two, I think that's a sign of bad writing, to be honest.
I didn't
I have
realize
also read exactly one Sanderson book. It was Warbreaker, and I read it several years ago. And even at the time, I thought like this would have been a great gateway to adult fantasy series to adult fantasy writing if I had read this like in college. So I think if readers encounter fantasy at like that sweet spot of like starting to get into adult fantasy, like I understand why people latch on to it so hard.
Yeah. Okay. So I read Elantris in 2015, and it was for a book club that I was part of. And like, truly, I remember nothing from this book.
I think I read Elantris at about like the same year as you. And I read it before knowing that Sanderson was a big deal. In fact, I think this is probably the era when he was still like publishing Mistborn or something, like before he became like this juggernaut, you know, in adult fantasy. And to this day, Elantris, thank God it's a standalone, is I think the only book by him of the three I've read that I enjoyed.
Yeah, because I read it for a book club, and then I found out he was Mormon, and that was like that's still my red line of like, I'm not gonna spend money on an author where 10% of that money is going to fund a church that hates me and my family. Like,
yeah. I don't think we should turn this whole series discussion into
anyway, yeah, so
a discussion, but I like, I have a large number of people in my life, family, friends, people I love, who are diehard Sanderson fans, and I've never gotten it. I don't, but I respect the fact that you are really into this. Like, this is your happy place. That's cool.
I do think it's the MCU for books. Aspect.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, that's funny. I saw a video of him recently talking about how much later the UK was to publish his work, like they weren't getting how great he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do plan on finishing Between Earth and Sky and doing the Burning Kingdoms. I might try to read some of the Southern Reach, and I might try and catch up a bit on Encrypted, but I don't really feel the urge to do Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I am not touching Stormlight. Life is too short. But yeah, I would say this is the best series. Like, this is roughly what I was expecting for best series. Like, I figured there was going to be a Shauna Maguire series on here. I didn't know if it was going to be Encrypted or Middle Game.
We did learn that the Singing Hill cycle had the votes, but did not meet word count. Which, how could any of us have known? Because that's not information anyone can have.
I mean, I think there was a discussion about whether it would be eligible or not. I nominated it because I was like, well, if it is, I want to throw my nomination in there. Let them sort it out.
That's how I felt, because there wasn't too many series where I felt like super strongly that I wanted them on the ballot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the one finalist in this category that I did predict, and I'm happy it came out this way, was Between Earth and Sky by Rebecca Roanhorse. I was kind of worried that it was going to be like best novel or whatever, because with the exception of the beginning of the trilogy, I didn't think that the second and third installments individually were best novel material necessarily, but I really think that the trilogy as a whole, like, it's greater than the sum of its parts. Like, definitely a good one for best series, not for best novel, in my opinion. So I'm happy with that. And I think if people haven't read the series, like, reading it all the way through more quickly rather than with such big gaps is gonna make like the middle book a little bit more.
I have a question. A question for the Seanan McGuire fans. Is Encrypted really that much more popular than the Middle Game series?
So I think, yeah. So okay. So I didn't realize she had requested that folks not nominate
okay.
Middle Game. Okay, that makes sense, because I also think with Encrypted, it's a little like the October Day series, and I say this as someone who like has read all the October Day books and really likes them, where it's just kind of like the momentum of this is one of the few regularly updating long running series that's happening in SFF, where
It's just, I feel like I never see anything about the Encrypted series literally anywhere, except when it shows up on the Best Series Hugo nominations, like clockwork every 2 books, or however often it shows up, according to eligibility. I've never seen anyone actually like reviewing any of the books. I don't know what any of the book covers look like except for the first book. That's the only one of the book covers I've even seen.
I have one in near me, so let me grab it.
So this just baffles me because I don't know who's reading this series aside from Di.
I mean, I also I am 7 books behind, so don't listen to me. This is the first Tor published one.
Okay, this is the first time I'm seeing this book cover. I don't recognize it.
I really do think it's because Seanan McGuire is a Hugo darling, and she's one of the ones that consistently does series and has new installments in series. I do think that's part of it.
I think Seanan McGuire is also one of those authors. I mean, she's very prolific. She's very regular with her publication schedule. She's one of the authors who has a dedicated following of people who regularly read and nominate her works that are maybe not necessarily part of the communities or the places that we interact with. Because I mean, that's why I also never hear anything about some of these series that she regularly writes in. But I know it's because I don't follow any reviewers or people who are reading them regularly. So, and yes, as Elle says, it's tough to talk about a series this far in, for sure.
Yeah,
you get past I don't know, book 5 or 6 in a series, and you're we're so many arcs into this story that I can't even tell you what the beginning of this latest arc is about.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, I think with Seanan McGuire, she does have a specific writing style, and it works for me, but I also can understand that her specific style or voice, even when there's variations across her different books, or variations with what she uses for Mira Grant versus what she uses for stuff under her normal name, I think I can understand people bouncing off of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, so those are my thoughts about Best Series.
Okay. We are 20 minutes from our usual ending point. I assume we were going to go a bit later today.
Yeah, I figured we were going at least 30 minutes later.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too. Okay. We may need to pick up the pace slightly, though.
I have a feeling we're entering the part where a lot of us don't have super strong opinions.
Yes.
We might.
I will say for Best Graphic Story, we can relay some of Rhea's opinions on, because they expressed them to us, since they are not here to share them.
Yeah, all right. So the Best Graphic Story or Comic nominees are The Deep Dark by Molly Knox Ostertag, The Hunger and the Dusk Volume 1 by G. Willow Wilson and Chris Wildgoose, Monstrous Volume 9, The Possessed by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, My Favorite Thing is Monsters Book 2 by Emil Ferris, Star Trek Lower Decks Warp Your Own Way, written by Ryan North, art by Chris Fenolio, and We Called Them Giants by Kieran Gillen, Stephanie Hans, and Clayton Cowles.
I will say I appreciate there is only one nominee that's like many books into a series, just
Yeah.
for my own
And
peace of
the thing
mind.
about Monstrous is I'm pretty sure almost every single volume of Monstrous has been nominated or at least longlisted. People who are following this category are probably up to date if they care about it.
Yeah. I really want a Delicious in Dungeon.
Yeah, they have thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, they have thoughts about Kieran Gillen. Other thoughts from Rhea is like the continued lack of disappointment at the lack of manga on the shortlist.
Yes, Delicious in Dungeon. What is that
Do
for?
Hugo voters just not read manga?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But Witch Hat
like-
Atelier is so good. Yeah. Does manga ever make this list? I
No.
don't know. I don't know if anything that would like absolutely be classified as manga has made it or not.
Yeah, so I am looking forward to reading Warp Your Own Way because I do love a good choose your own adventure type stuff, and that's what Warp Your Own Way is. And Ryan North's comedic sensibilities work for me. Long live Squirrel Girl.
Yeah. So, Ramsey, my favorite thing is Monsters Book 2. I thought this was interesting. So the first book was nominated years ago. And for some reason, I thought that book 2 had come out also years ago. I didn't realize there was such a large gap in between books 1 and book 2. So it's one I have out from the library that I plan on reading because it's so different from what like I would usually read and nominate in this category as well. I am particularly pleased that The Deep Dark made it. That was one of my 5-star nominees. So really happy about that. And also it's more like YA/new adult, which is a different kind of age range for the best graphic story category, I think.
Yeah, those are. I don't really have too many thoughts on graphic stories.
I haven't read any of these. So.
Yeah. I'm also pleased that, I mean, I don't know anything about The Hunger in the Dusk, but I have really enjoyed G. Willow Wilson's writing on other comics, like, oh my God.
Invisible Empire?
Was
it Invisible Empire?
Yeah, Invisible Empire. I really enjoyed that. That was just a trilogy. It was a pretty short series, but she wrote for Marvel before. She wrote...
Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel, yeah.
She did Ms. Marvel. She's doing Poison Ivy right now for DC.
Interesting. Her writing was the reason that I continued with Ms. Marvel, and when she kind of concluded her arc on that, it was taken up and then canceled. I think Saladin Ahmed was writing after that point. I really missed it. I thought she did a fantastic job on that. So I kind of keep an eye out for her work in comics now, because I think she's just really good at writing in comics. So I'm excited to try that and hope I like it. Okay, so somebody here has read Hunger and Dusk, so okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. It's another one that's on Hoopla, so I have it checked out right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at my library and see what they have physically available, because I prefer doing that for comics.
I do too. I really do prefer reading comics, like especially the trades in physical form, but it is hard to get them.
All right. Do we want to move on to best related work?
Yes. There's a lot of names here. I'm going to make this short. So best related work, Charting the Cliff, an investigation into the 2023 Hugo nomination statistics, Our Fantasies 2024 Bingo Reading Challenge, The Spectacular Failure of the Star Wars Hotel, Speculative Whiteness, Science Fiction and the Alt-Right, Track Changes, and the 2023 Hugo Awards, a report on censorship and exclusion. Like, it's at least like 3 of these are very indicative of what was going on last year.
Yeah,
in SFF reporting.
I am not shocked that both of the Hugo reports made the list. That was like the biggest gimme.
The Sanford and Barkley piece was one that I nominated myself as well.
I will say congrats to our bingo, but I think G from Book Roast Magical Readathon is better put together and should have been nominated.
The huge amount of effort that she puts into that is just amazing. It's amazing.
I'm going to be honest, respect to the Our Fantasy mods, but I think the Magical Readathon, the world building, the thought that she puts into the themes every season, because it happens twice a year. It's not just like put it together for one. I did put her in the sheet and I nominated her. Anyway, so I think Magical Readathon needs to be in there because it is fantastic. And if folks aren't aware of what it is, it's a twice-a-year readathon hosted by G at Book Roast. And you're in a magical school, and there are different careers that you can do. And I think for me, the biggest reason why I have a lot of respect for the work that she does is it was initially Harry Potter themed, and when J.K. Rowling went mask off, G completely revamped the readathon and created a new world and a new explanation for the structure of it. And I have a lot of respect for that. So
such a creative endeavor for a readathon.
It's and the fact that it's twice a year that she does that work, it is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Did the Star Wars Hotel flop? I feel like did we ever get a follow-up on what actually happened with that?
It closed. I think part of it
closed it.
Yeah. I will say I will be ranking that below no award because Jenny Nicholson is kind of a piece of shit. And
I'm going to agree to disagree with you on that particular one. I didn't nominate this one, but I have actually watched that video essay twice just for the heck of it because
here's the thing. Jenny Nicholson was really racist against John Boyega and was blocking people who were calling her out on it. And then
this is a Twitter thing.
Yes.
Oh.
And then during the Black Lives Matter protests, when John was speaking out about his experiences as a Black actor, she was like, "Oh, we support you," and everyone was like, "Bitch, you were a part of that." So I do not like Jenny Nicholson. I also find her voice very annoying. I have Speculative Whiteness checked out from my work right now. I was able to get that through the consortium, so I'm very interested to read it. It's very short. It is a very short book.
I'm really hoping that a couple of these are going to make it to the voter packet because I think it's the only way that I will reasonably get access to them in time for voting. So yeah,
I think Speculative Whiteness, if it's not in the voters packet, it's not going to get a lot of votes because it is a university press book, and its distribution is much more limited.
Although there have definitely been some best-related works from university presses that have won before.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think it's just a question of does it get in the voters packet?
Oh, wait. It's online.
Oh, sweet.
Is it free online or free access? Free access online? Did not know that.
Look.
Is it in the list of things I was looking at? Oh, it is. Yeah, it can be read online at this link.
Oh, I guess it's open access, which is nice.
Oh, I completely missed this when I was looking at the list of links. Cool. Okay.
And I haven't heard about track changes before.
Yeah. Aside from our bingo, I actually have a good chance of familiarizing myself with everything in this category, which I haven't been able to for the past couple of years. So I'm pretty happy about that. I really wish that we didn't have controversies that carried over into best related works so frequently, though. And I feel like a lot of that reporting is going to be kind of top of people's voting lists because they're familiar with it, and there are some strong emotions around a lot of that still.
Yeah. I definitely think one of the Hugo reports is going to take best related work. I just don't know which one. Yeah, it wouldn't be Hugo season without Hugo navel gazing, or Hugo navel gazing. And we can see that in best fan cast as well. All right, do we want to move on?
Dramatic presentations?
Yes.
Okay, so best dramatic presentation long form, we have Dune Part 2, Flow and Furiosa, A Mad Max Saga, I Saw the TV Glow, Wicked, and The Wild Robot.
I am really bad at movies and have not seen any of these.
I mean, I've seen Dune Part 2.
I've heard very good things about both Flow and I Saw the TV Glow.
I had never heard of I Saw the TV Glow until the shortlist came out. Anybody want to clue me in?
So I Saw the TV Glow is I don't want to say trans allegory, but it is about these two kids who bond over a TV show that's very similar to Buffy, but it's original to the movie. And then one of them leaves and then comes back and is like, no, like this is like real. We have to deal with this. And it is a trans allegory. And like I've heard very good things about it. I just am very bad at watching movies.
Any other thoughts? I think Kelsey, you see some of these others on the list.
I mean, I've seen both the animated films and Wicked. I liked them. That's kind of.
I will say it's interesting that there's no like one season of TV. Like I think that's been something that's been really prevalent the last few years. Like I know for me, I nominated Acolyte season 1 because I didn't have like I thought as a season it was really good and I wanted to do that instead of nominate like a specific episode. So I don't know, I just find that interesting given like previous shortlists.
And if Rhea were here, they would say something about Arcane.
Season 2.
No season 2 of Arcane, no individual episodes in the next category either, which I am also kind of pissed about.
So yeah, we can move on to short form, I guess.
Okay, so best dramatic presentation short form, Fallout: The Beginning, Agatha All Along, Death's Hand in Mine, Doctor Who: Dot and Bubble, Star Trek Lower Decks Fisher Quest, Star Trek Lower Decks The New Next Generation, and Doctor Who 7 to 3 Yards. So we have 2 Star Trek Lower Decks and 2 Doctor Who.
So
I haven't
seen the jokes about like recession indicators, but I feel like Doctor Who being back on the twice on the best dramatic presentation short form shortlist is a recession indicator.
I haven't seen.
I think you might be right.
I'm not going to because I don't currently have a subscription to any of these streaming services.
I need to catch up on Lower Decks, but I am excited that it's there. I think Lower Decks is a really fun show, and like it pokes a lot of it pokes fun at Star Trek, but from a place of deep love and appreciation of Star Trek. Um, which I think is like a really hard line to balance, and I think Lower Decks does it really well. I did nominate the Agatha All Along episode because I really liked that. But yeah, I do need to watch Fallout. I will say, like, I'm not super enthused about Doctor Who right now, so I haven't seen any of the new season. Russell T Davies knows what he did.
Best game or interactive work?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of thoughts.
I'm just gonna say I have like nothing more to say about anything, like any of the categories that we haven't talked about yet. So like I could sign off anytime.
I will say for interactive work, I'm happy Veilguard was there, and I'm really excited to see to try out some of the other games that are on the short list.
Yeah.
Like we said, we might go a half hour long, but
maybe not.
maybe not.
Yeah, obviously I don't have anything to say about the best game or interactive work. So you need to make a canceled spreadsheet. Or share the one that you have.
Yeah. I mean, I have a grudge spreadsheet, but that's just mostly to remind myself, like, why am I annoyed at this person? Like, is it because the vibes are bad, or did they, like, actually do something to deserve being annoyed?
Okay. Do we want to skim categories, see if anybody has stuff to say? We have best editor short form, best editor long form. Quite a few familiar names. I don't have any commentary here.
I like the folks for best professional artist.
Yeah, there are some people I recognize and a couple I don't.
Yeah, the artist who does the Singing Hills covers is there.
Alyssa Winans.
Oh, yes, Alyssa Winans.
Ramsey, in terms of what RT did, I'm never going to be over the treatment of Martha, and even though they undid it, I still hated how he handled Donna at the end of season 4.
Hold on. Where's my phone? I need to show you something. I have a phone case that's a piece of Alyssa Winans art from I forget which online shop. Anyways, I like it.
Nice. Yeah, I do recognize quite a few names in the best professional artist. Michaela Alcaino, I know that name from somewhere.
She has been doing a lot of book covers. She's kind of like one of the I feel like she's one of the go-to book cover artists right now.
Okay.
She does vary her stuff. I think she did the re-release of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Okay. We also have Audrey Benjaminson, Rowena Kai, Maurizio Manzieri, Tran Nguyen, and Alyssa Winans. And I know for sure Rowena Kai, Maurizio Manzieri, and Alyssa Winans are like, love them. Love their stuff. Semi-prosine, I don't have much to say. It's nice to see Faya and Correo there. Also, the Deadlands is on there. Have they been nominated before?
I don't know.
I think they might be new in this category. I'm going to skip to fan cast.
Sure.
We have the Coode Street podcast, 8 Days of Diana Wynne Jones. That's absolutely 8 Days of Luke, right? Hugo Girl, Hugo's There, A Meal of Thorns, and World Building for Masochists. Somebody say navel gazing. Two podcasts focused on the Hugos.
I'm really happy about the 8 Days of Diana Wynne Jones being there. I think that's the one that like I'm most excited about.
So I haven't listened to this podcast, but Diana Wynne Jones is an absolute favorite of my entire lifetime, and it's always better if more people are discussing her stuff still.
Just elephant in the room that there are no booktube entries on Fancast this year.
Again.
I feel like the era of the booktube SFF niche making it to the list might be over. Am I going to be unpopular for that opinion?
Incendiary statement. Some of us haven't been nominated yet, Rachel. Do you have to be mean like that? You got yours.
I have nominated you before, okay? Wait, really? Cool. Yeah, nothing is ever over. I am ready for everybody who fled to Book Talk to come back to BookTube, and let's have like a renaissance of BookTube. Yeah.
I am also ready for that.
Yeah. Anyway, there is a lot of Hugo navel gazing. Hugo navel gazing.
Okay,
in this category.
the one other category that we have to acknowledge, even if we don't have commentary here, is the best poem, because it is the special category this year. So the best poem category, we have Calypso by Oliver K. Langmead, Ever Noir by Mari Ness, There Are No Taxis for the Dead by Angela Liu, A War of Words by Murray Brennan, We Drink Lava by Ai Zhang, and Your Visiting Dragon by Devin Barlow. I forgot, I've actually read these, only one of them isn't available online. And I quite like There Are No Taxis for the Dead by Angela Liu. But I'm not a poetry connoisseur.
Calypso is a novel or novella in verse.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting that made best poem. And I do think I read We Drink Lava a while back, and I don't remember it. I didn't nominate in this category. Like, I tried to read some poems, and I didn't find anything that stuck with me enough to say, oh, I want to nominate this. So I'm hoping something here will stick with me enough to say I want to vote for it.
I am excited that, like, I am also not a poetry person, but I am excited that this is the special category this year and kind of learning more about SFF poetry.
Even though, like, I don't read a lot of poetry, I'm not as interested in it. I do think it would be really cool to have more acknowledgement of SFF poetry out there.
Yeah, and I know the Ignite Awards does have a poetry category.
Is the Riesling actually an SFF poetry award, or is it?
I don't know.
Oh, they are. It's the annual award given for the best science fiction, fantasy, or horror poem of the year. I've never followed the Riesling, but I do kind of notice when authors like have that in their bio or whatever. So, like Amal El-Motar, for example, I think has won at least one Riesling award. So
that is someone who I haven't read The River Has Roots, but I would not be shocked if that ends up on the shortlist next year. I've heard nothing but good things.
I'm pretty sure. Like I also want to read that one. I also would like El-Motar to write more poetry, because has anybody read The Honey Month? That was some of the first poetry
I remember when you were
like as an adult. I was like, maybe not prepared for how. I think erotic is the wrong word here, but they're sensual. There's some imagery that got to me in that. So I was recently in a bookstore that had a physical copy of The Honey Month, which blew my mind. I've got an ebook copy somewhere, and I'm kicking myself now that I didn't buy it and reread it. All right. That's the end, unless anybody in chat has stuff about down ballot categories they
Okay,
want to throw in there.
I have like back to the top of the ballot thoughts now that I've been marinating in it for a couple hours.
We going back to novel?
No, just sort of novella overall, and how they both felt like very predictable lists to me. And it's always most exciting for me when things show up on these lists that are unexpected in some way.
I feel like that was me last year with Some Desperate Glory. Like, I hadn't heard.
Yeah. And it gives me, when there are things that like, oh, that slipped under my radar. How did I miss that? What's everyone talking about? It makes me excited to read for the Hugos and to talk about the Hugos when unexpected things show up on the short list. And I don't know what causes that to happen. And I don't know, I sort of had a theory last year that we got some sort of slightly unexpected things on the short list because like Twitter was falling apart and no one really knew where the next centralized place was going to be. And so I think I had a sense that no one was quite on the pulse of what other people were reading and talking about. So when we actually got a list, there were some surprises. I don't know what else can contribute to that element of surprise in something like the Hugo shortlist. I think something that can definitely do it is new influxes of voters from different parts of the fandom.
Yeah, we've had some years where we've had some interesting nominees because of an influx of voters from like a previous Worldcon from somewhere else. Like after Helsinki in 2017, I think like 2 years afterwards, there ended up being this little trickle of like Finnish fans down ballot and stuff. It was really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think I saw someone talking about like part of the reason we have 2 Tchaikovskys on the short list for novel is the leftovers is like folks who still had nominating privileges from Glasgow because he's apparently bigger in the UK than he is in the US.
And that's another thing about Tchaikovsky is that he is quite big, but I mean he's won the Clark Award, but getting a British author, published first there, getting traction in the US is going to be a bit harder. So it's sort of his breakout in a way, maybe.
Anyways, that was my thought once I stewed for a little is I wish there were more surprises because surprises are exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally like to be excited and surprised.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of the years where I'm going to be much more interested in the long list and what didn't make the cut, particularly for best novel.
I think we say that every year about at least one category, though.
Yeah, that's true.
What would we do if the Hugo Awards were not staffed by stats nerds who gave us the long list? Like a lot of awards don't give you that peek behind the scenes.
We would suffer in oblivion.
Yeah, we're just left wondering for the rest of time. All right. Well,
yeah, Renee did predict.
Half the novelist. Okay. Something that didn't happen this year that has happened in previous years is sometimes there's that timing thing with the Nebula Awards and the Hugo Awards where the Nebula shortlist comes out before the Hugo nominations begin. And in those years, I'm never surprised to see overlap. Like you can kind of pick things from the nebulas and be like, I think that's going to really appeal to the Hugo voters. It'll probably be there, especially short fiction, because I think people get their ideas from like whatever big shortlist has come out before. Anyway, should we wrap up then? No extra last minute thoughts? All right. So for anybody who joined later after our introductory spiel and stuff, most of us are going to be at the Seattle Worldcon. We have plans. We're going to be at the Hugo Awards ceremony probably. I mean, I will be. So we will be there, trying to make the best of it with some of our friends not being able to make it and a lot of people not being able to make it. And we will be back for our regular Stitch and Bitch live show 2 weeks from now, the last weekend in April.
On my channel.
So, yes, on Dai's channel. So you will be seeing more of us, and we'll be doing our usual chat about what we've been reading and watching. And I'm sure there will be more cats and tea to spill, metaphorically, not actually, really.
I don't know. I'm clumsy enough where I could actually.
It could also be literal.
We'll try not to literally spill tea. I mean, let's not waste tea, okay? Also, that's hot and you can burn yourself, so don't. Murderbot trailer. Yes.
Yes.
I am extremely tempted. So I'm going on vacation at the end of April, beginning of May, and I'm like, should I just pack all the Murderbot and do like a massive reread on the plane?
I accidentally started my reread.
I saw that.
I did that in March. In like 48 hours, I read 6 out of the 7 Murderbot.
Oh.
And
I really want to.
That did fuck me at my reading up for the rest of the month, though.
Okay. So I'm sure we will have Murderbot thoughts. Maybe I will even reread some of them. So question, are we having a meetup at Worldcon? Unlikely. We've never really arranged one before, but if you see us there, say hi.
Yeah.
We like it when people say hi to us. All right. Sayonara, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for joining us.
And hopefully we will have a full house 2 weeks from now, and everybody will be recovered and ready to go. So
channel are we on?
We're on Dai's channel. Yep.
It's the 4th month, so we're on mine. We're April, August, December on mine. You're the month before me.
I still can't remember, and I made the
never remember.
list.
I just know that we're on mine during my birthday month, which this year is Worldcon month. So
yeah. All right. Goodbye, everybody, for real this time.
Bye.